retraining workers to re-enter the labor market. So the United States of America is no stranger to economic recessions. Since 1948, the US has gone through 11 recessions. A recession, for those who don't know, in this case, is where the US shows significant decline for a minimum of 6 months. According to think tank Pew Research Center, the job recession of 2008 to 2010, as you can see at the top of this infographic, took out the most jobs since World War II. And as of September 2013, where the article comes from, it was at 42 months and counting since the start of what many call the Great Recession. During these months, only 6.8 million jobs were created, which accounts for 78% of the total amount of jobs lost. Efforts to help everyday Americans in the area of employment has long been under the US government's itinerary. But should the US government be responsible for retraining workers to re-enter the labor market? While reading through the stimulus material, I noticed the topic of the connection between pride and work, which came up in Derek Thompson's A World Without Work article and Richard Nixon's 1971 speech addressed to the nation on Labor Day. Nixon's speech brought to light the ingrained nationalistic American ideal that fulfillment and self-worth comes from being able to work and to help the US economy succeed. In Nixon's own words, work ethic is ingrained in the American character. That is why most of us consider it immoral to be lazy or slothful. Thompson highlights there is a widespread concern that the US labor force will soon be an era of technological unemployment, and the total number of jobs will decline steadily and permanently. While Thompson's article was written in 2015 and Nixon's speech was in the early 1970s, the way of American thinking that Nixon addressed back in the early 1970s is still as prominent in today's society as much as it was back then. But alongside industrial progression and technology advancement, Americans don't just stand to lose jobs, but also are at risk of negative cultural and mental changes, which is also known as regional depression, which is a damaging effect of losing a region's main source of prosperity. So my first example is from the Thompson article of Youngstown, Ohio, which is a strong example of how the loss of industrial prosperity can bring down not just a city's economic value, but also the psyche of its citizens. According to Thompson, Youngstown has become a national metaphor for the decline of labor, a place where the middle class of the 20th century has become a museum exhibit. The city broke down after losing 50,000 jobs over the course of a mere 5 years. The loss of jobs were heavily influenced by the event of September 19, 1977, where the main source of jobs, the Campbell work mills, as shown in this photo here, shut down. As a result, depression, spousal abuse, and suicide all became much more prevalent issues. While Youngstown citizens, in response to the shutdown of the mills, turned to job hopping, on the other hand, citizens of Wenatchee, Washington, turned to job retraining as a beacon of hope for their unassured futures. Aluminum producing company Alcoa, as shown in this photo here, shut down their plant in Wenatchee, Washington in January 2016. As a result, over 400 of the plant's local aluminum smelter workers were thrown into unemployment. A majority of these workers turned to government-supported vocational retraining at the local Valley College. Laid-off workers of the Alcoa plant not only lost out on a very well-paying job, but also lost a sense of worth that came with working at Alcoa plants. A past worker states that, "I won't be able to do anything as big and unique, and I guess dangerous as working at Alcoa." In times of economic distress in the US workforce, such as shown in the previous examples of Youngstown and Wenatchee, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, also known as the ARR, was created to help fund federal-backed retraining programs, such as the one-stop career centers. So these centers are essentially centers of local referral centers where displaced workers can come and get individually personalized suggestions to local job training programs, and also created a local support system and a place for simply work advice. Job finding database monster writer John Rossheim specifies that the money from the ARRA will specifically be helping the newest generation entering the workforce straight from college, and also older seniors who are struggling to maintain their current jobs or finding a new one. While the government-funded retraining assistance plans were made with good intentions, a big limitation was the lack of opportunities in non-metropolitan areas. The Journal of Employment Counseling states that non-metro areas have fewer organizations, businesses, and employers than in comparison to metro areas, which also contributed to fewer employment opportunities. Bob Grainer, who administers Valley College's auto mechanic program, this college was from the previously talked about Wenatchee, Washington. He found that some of his trainees in his retraining program had to leave the city in order to replace the jobs they lost that left with the Alcoa plant. So when opportunities for money leaves, residents must choose to either follow the money opportunity or stay in a city and face the instability. From another perspective, Amy Goldstein of the Washington Post focused on Black Hawk Tech, which is another vocational training college, as an example to see if retraining helps significantly for displaced workers who would choose around 2 years of learning in a college instead of 2 years of finding a job and making money. She was surprised to find that 40% of the graduated class, the total amount of the class was around 1,700 students, and she found that 40% of these students were not earning any income at all. Before the Great Recession, the dislocated workers who went to school and the ones who didn't were on average getting paid around the same. But after the recession, those who didn't go to retraining were earning more than the ones that did. The limitations of retraining success may also be thanks to the myth that training will create jobs. But in Goldstein's own words, if there's no demand for magic, there's no demand for magicians. While government-invested retraining programs look to be giving out mixed results, the results of company-provided retraining with their own workshops and opportunities in comparison has yielded more positive outcomes. According to Peter Capelli, a management professor from the Wharton School, when a company chooses to emphasize on retraining their own current workers, the company is essentially investing in their workers to assure their continuation as an employee. From his point of view, the main benefit of the company retraining is maintaining a company's social network and social capital. As Capelli states, the story here is that workers are bringing something other than their skills. What they bring is that they know everyone else, know how to get along with them, and know everybody's strengths and weaknesses. So as a result, when they are retrained, altogether they will make progress faster. In conclusion, the responsibility of retraining America's displaced workers should continue to be in the hands of the US government, whose financial backings have shown to be widening the accessibility of retraining services. As the US labor market will, of course, continue to fluctuate, it's crucial that the government will always leave the option of retraining programs and facilities open to whoever, whenever. The best route the US government can take to help displaced workers entering a new market is to put their federal funding into company retraining programs and to encourage companies who aren't currently doing so to retrain their workers. Company and businesses provided retraining stands to bear better results because they're training their workers for a job that already exists, unlike government retraining initiatives where the completion of their programs cannot promise and prepare graduates where companies can. Thank you.
Sydney, I have to ask you two questions. The first one is, can you talk a little
For the most part, I made sure all of my articles um, came from an author that I could look up on LinkedIn, and for the most part, I use LinkedIn to check what their like current and past jobs were and where they studied as terms of seeing like whether or not they were qualified for the area of my topic.
Okay. If you could extend your research, and either answer a question that bubbled up that you didn't have a chance to, let's say, what would that topic be?
Relating to this. I think I'd open it up to, there was this section where I kind of blocked off because it was too much to get into. So I found out that the U.S. government gives like federal kind of grants in terms of retraining, and it's like a limited amount of money that I believe people have to pay back once they get a job. And I found that really interesting, but I felt like getting too deep into that would, take away the research that I did for the research topic.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.